Hello, 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 and welcome everyone to this episode of the Julia Dispatch. My name is Chris Rackauckas.
And I'm Michael Tiemann. And today we have a very special guest for you. We have Kyle Conel.
Hey, everybody.
Kyle, this is a first for us because it's the first time that we're meeting someone totally new, like other guests that we had on. We knew from conferences and such. But I'm very excited about this because I just love your online presence, and we're going to talk about that later. But so tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure, yeah. I mean, what you guys know me for, I've been creating for about a year and a half. I've been creating a game engine with Julia. I'm a software engineer by trade. I've been a software engineer at Atlassian, so like Trello, Jira, stuff like that. I've been there for a little over 2 years, and then in my free time, I spend making games and little projects, and most of my time has been consumed making this engine in Julia. So yeah,
JulGame is obviously the thing that caught my attention. But so, have you always been a big gamer? Is that the reason why you started software engineering, or like tell us how that came along, essentially?
Yeah. So I guess in a way, I've pretty much always known I wanted to be a software engineer. When I was a kid, I think I was like 5 or 6 years old, I told my mom I wanted to make video games. And I tried.
What games were inspiring you at that time?
I played a ton of Nintendo.
All right.
As a kid, I played Super Nintendo, original Nintendo, Nintendo 64, everything growing up. So we were a big Nintendo family. Played a lot with my brother, and I just love video games. So my mom actually taught me a lot about computers. Made me my first email address, and then that's when I learned, you can play video games online. I thought that was pretty cool. And then I wanted to make video games. I made a lot of attempts. Growing up, never really created my first game until I was in college. So like I was, I think, a couple years into college and made my first game. But as a kid, I wanted to do it so bad. I actually played Roblox as a kid, made some little games on there, but never actually learned how to code or anything like that. And one funny story was when I was a kid, I thought it was so simple to make a game that I could just like cut up a piece of paper into a CD and then write the name of the game I wanted on it. And then I threw it in my like IBM PC and thought it was going to play a game. Obviously nothing happened, but I think I wrote like Mario Party 4 or 5 on it, whichever one. It would have been the next one at that time. I wrote that on there and then threw it in the disk drive. And then luckily did not break my computer.
We're getting pretty close now with generative AI.
We're getting there. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into games. And then like growing up, I played a ton of games in my free time. I actually I was an athlete throughout like high school and college. So my college career, I was an athlete. So I wrestled. So I spent a lot of time doing that, but when I wasn't doing that, I was playing a lot of video games. I was 197 in college, pretty much the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was in high school, I actually did some wrestling, and I was some of the lower weight class. I was 119 for a lot of my high school, so I'm
really
nowhere close to that these days.
Yeah, I was always on the bigger side. I think my freshman year of high school I was 189, so I was already at that weight class, and then I was just. Then they changed the weight class, and I was 195 the rest of the time. And then
it's much more of a grapple game. But yeah.
It's fun.
That's a whole other topic.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
We're good.
I will have to look up what those numbers mean after the recording.
Oh yeah, those are in freedom units. Yes, sorry to our non-free audience.
It was 97 kilos when I did. That's freestyle stuff. So.
That's a number that I recognize and a unit, yeah. But so you started to program, or you haven't learned programming prior to college then?
Correct. Yeah, so I actually, when I went into college, I decided I wasn't going to do computer science. We didn't have anything like that when I was in high school offered at all. And I was like, I'm going to be a wrestling coach, which I am, but I was like, I'm going to be a wrestling coach, so I'm going to be a teacher. So I started as health and phys ed. And then in my dorm, I was just like, man, I really want to make a game. So I found these Unity tutorials and followed along with them. And I'm like, man, I hated math, and I was like, I can't let math stop me. So then I actually finished my freshman year, and then sophomore year I switched to computer science, and then I did a minor in game programming as well. So I did some actual game dev classes and stuff like that. But really, in my freshman years when I wrote my first line of code, but it wasn't until a few years later I made my first like little game jam game.
Okay.
But yeah.
And then, so the public record shows that the first commit to JulGame was in summer of 2021, I think. Mm-hmm. But I'm guessing that Julia was not your first programming language. So tell us, like, what was the prior to Julia, and then how that change came along, and why you decided to stick with Julia.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting the way I did it. So with work, a lot of the stuff I've worked on, pretty much every job I've had, done like C#, JavaScript, TypeScript, things like that. That's pretty much the most of what I've done. And then at my first job, like the first 2 months, like they didn't really have me doing anything. So I was just doing like coding tutorials. This was back in 2020. I was doing like coding tutorials and stuff like that, little courses and stuff like that. And then I started messing around with like, I was like, I wonder if I could make a game with PowerPoint, right? And I am getting to Julia. I know this is a little wide, but I started making a game with trying to make a game with PowerPoint, and then I was messing with it, trying to learn some VB script, but it just wasn't there because in my mind I'm like, there's Unity games a dime a dozen, the Unreal games a dime a dozen, not quite at that time, but all that stuff has been done. So I'm like, it would be pretty cool to do it somewhere where nobody else is doing it, right? So I did that, and I didn't get very far with it, but I wanted to come back to it, and I never really did. But at some point, I was just like, I want to do that again, but like actually get somewhere. So I literally, I think I did a Google search. I can't quite remember. I think I did a Google search of like, different programming languages, like just, different programming languages. And I was like, I want to try something. I want to make a game in a programming language. I think at the time, maybe I was like, oh, this would be a good video to make. And so I stumbled on Julia. I think I watched a few videos about it, and I'm like, oh, I like the syntax. I think this is pretty cool. And then I found that you could use SDL with Julia. So I found this like C++ SDL tutorial, and I was like, all right, all I got to do is, look at that code, convert it to Julia, and like I can do the same thing. So I did that. That's when I started the repo. I did that, and I just let it sit, I think, for like over a year. So I basically just completed that tutorial, or got pretty close, and then just left it for like a year or so. And then last year, my wife and I had our first child in January, and thank you. And so I went on paternity leave, and we have a pretty generous policy. I was off for like almost 4 months, and at some point I'm like, I've been picking up game projects, picking them up, putting them down, picking them, putting them down. I was like, I really want to work on something. So I was like, maybe let's
for this kid. So I got something I need to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the first like few months, she's like not doing anything. I just had like one of those things, and I just wore her, and she just slept, most of the day. So I just had her here, and most of the time I was playing video games, and I was like, what, I want to, I always have that itch to like do something creative. Like I always want to, make something. So I was like, I'm gonna go back to this project. So I finally went back to that project, and I was like, I'm going to make an actual game with it, and basically abandon it. I was like, I'm going to make a game with this real quick, and then be done with it, so I can just let that itch for that project die for the Julia repo. And then I started working on it, and then I made a game for a game jam that I actually hosted. So I hosted a game jam. And for people who are watching who don't know what a game jam is, it's like a hackathon just for games. So it's just like, limited time. We come up with a theme, and then people have to make a game centered around that theme. You get to vote on it, and then there's a set of winners. And I usually, for the game jams I host, I'll pay out a small cash prize. So I hosted the game jam. I entered it myself. If I won it or anything like that, I was not going to, take the money. But I ended up creating a little game, and within the bounds of what I could actually do with the game engine, which was very simple. I could render text. I could, render some sprites. Not very easy. All of this was like through code. So I had to just type all this code out just to create this entity that has a sprite on it. And I was 40 lines of code or something like that at the time, doing everything manually. And so I ended up creating this game. It was super simple. It took maybe 3 minutes to beat, but I was super proud of it. And I built it, and I was like, after this game, I'm gonna be done with it. So then I made it. And then after I made it, I was like, man, if I had a tool to make this game faster, I could have made that game in 2 days instead of, I think it was 2 weeks. I could have made it in 2 days instead of 2 weeks if I would have, if I had an editor, a visual editor to, put the entities on the scene and stuff like that. So then I spent months creating this editor for JulGame.
I could be so much more lazy if I put a few years of work into making
Yes. Yes. If I spend 6 months working on this thing, I could save 5 minutes. So I did that, and I liked it. And then so I was like, yeah, I'm going to make another game. And then I posted that second game I made in the Julia, in the discourse, and I got a pretty good feedback on it. People were really excited about it. And then I was like, oh, this is a good niche. I like this programming language. I like building my own tools. It's a heck of a lot slower. It would have been much easier to go use a tool, but I enjoy the process of figuring these things out. I'm not following a tutorial from beginning to end. I'm not reading a book from cover to cover. I'm just I need this right now for this game. I need to render, a sprite and animate it. How do I do that? And then, maybe I have some reference or something like that, but I get to formulate a solution for that. And then I get to build on that. And then now that system's mostly set in stone. And then I get to use the work that I've created and build upon that. When a lot of the games I've made, I make it for a week or something like that. And then it's, just a picture in my portfolio or something like that. And that's it. But with this, I get to basically build this main project, and then I get excited about something, and I'm like, I can build that with the tool I've been working on. And while I'm building this other project with my shiny object syndrome, I can further improve on this core set of tools that I've been creating. And that's just been the driving force. Once I started getting momentum with that, I'm just at some point I kept telling myself, oh yeah, then I'm going to go back to Unity. I'm going to make a game with that. And then I make another game, and I'm like, okay, after this next one, I'm going to go back. And then at some point I was like, the more time I spend working on a Unity game, the less time I have to work on this tool. So then I just stopped working on anything else. And then that's where I just decided I was just going to continue working on JulGame.
But yeah, so I mean, that's a pretty interesting journey. I guess one of the things that one can know is do you have any short and long term goals as part of that, right? Because it seems like it's been you mentioned oh, I just made this game, then just this one, right? Sooner or later, it kind of becomes a project, right? Now that you're just oh, now that I got a project on my hands, I want to make sure that I do this, right? So what is your goal here? Is it do you have an identified goal, or is it more just like oh, I just want to make the next good game? Like that's the only thing planned, right? Kind of curious to kind of see the overall view of the project here.
Mm-hmm. I think my next big goal, which at some point I think I decided probably halfway through I started building on, was like I want to release like the first commercial game written in Julia. I think that's like a pretty would be a pretty cool thing to do. So to be able to do that, and I think I feel like with as many people I've talked to in the Julia community, I think a lot of people would appreciate that, and I think it's just cool to kind of like break down those barriers. And like I for one, like when somebody says like you can't do that, or like theoretically like that's not possible, or like it can't happen, like I'm gonna be like, okay, but did you actually try it? Like, did you actually try it? Because like when I was looking at Julia, I've seen some forum posts and people will say like, it's not really made for games. Like, you can't really do games in it. But me, I'm like, let's see. Like,
this parts the game engine. So yeah, if you just build the game engine, you're good.
Exactly. So my main goal right now is I think I built enough tools to do that. So I've started formulating the idea for a game that I want to work on. I don't have any promises for like.
This is a preview. I guess it's probably a bit early to kind of share a lot more details on it. But what kind of game is it? Are you looking at like making a platformer, or are you making a strategy game, or just kind of where are you targeting?
Yeah, I'm targeting like a roguelike-ish. So like if people who are watching and don't know what like a roguelike is, like or roguelite, whatever, like I'm not gonna talk about the like, getting the nitty-gritty of like what that truly is, but like essentially a game where you play in like runs, and in these runs like a lot of things are randomly generated or procedurally generated, and you have some sort of progress that as soon as that you lose all of your progress. But every run should feel unique. And this is going to be like kind of like, it's not going to be like an action, it's not going to be a platformer game, it's going to be like a kind of more like a puzzler game. I'm still like I can't like commit to like exactly what it'll be, because I'm still working on like prototyping it, and I have somebody I'm working with.
Fine.
Yeah, I have somebody I'm working with on it. Like,
now.
yeah. So
can I share that Kickstarter link now?
Oh yeah. So I am so with that. There has to be a lot of things like that I need to learn. Like I need to learn, because I want to release it on Steam. It's not just going to be an itch project. So I need to actually fully like understand the Steam API. I created or trying to proof of concept like bindings for it. There's not many functions there, so I'm going to go back and actually try to create a proper bindings library for it, which I need for achievements and hopefully trading cards and stuff like that. So I think through that process, I'm going to learn a lot. I've actually been working on this. I found so many bugs that I need to fix, but that's just any big project. There's a ton of bugs, but I think it's always I want to push the engine past its limits, and then when it hits that limit, like, okay, where can I optimize this? Like, where can I create a tool that if I'm spending, if I'm doing this repetitive process, it takes me, 30 minutes, 30 minutes to an hour each time. Like, can I get it down to 5 minutes? Things like that, like level editing, like, a process. When I created that first game, it was taking me, hours, because I need to basically change, lines of code, and then I need to, rebuild the game, run it just to see like a little change, and I didn't understand the coordinates or anything like that. So I need to go back, load this sprite, put it on the screen. Oh, that's like, way over here. All right, now I need to like,
Are you able to use Revise with the game engine to be able to like, hot patch in, changes to the game engine live using, the Revise tools and such? Or
that's something that I have plan to do. I've created like a little bit of a workaround because I don't fully understand it. I might need some, I'm probably not going to do it for this project, but I have figured out a way to reload. Basically, the way JulGame works is I have like an entry file, and then in like a specific folder in your project, I look for any .jl files, like in a scripts folder. I look for any .jl files, and then I'll pull those into JulGame. So they're basically part of the engine. I pull them in, and then in those files, like we have like certain functions that are like that we can call from JulGame, like an update, or like we initialize, or like when we shut down or something like that. I basically wrapped just recent. This is actually probably like a couple months ago. I wrapped them in modules, and when I press a button in my editor now, I can reload the module, and then so it'll like update the code in the editor. So I can make changes and then press a button. I can actually, that's something I actually want to automate as well, like because I can now live run scenes. Like I don't need to use the command line. I still use the command line a lot, but I can like press a button in the editor now, and I can actually like preview, like actually run a scene, preview it. But before that, I can actually like update the code in VS Code, and then press a button, and then it'll update that code. It's not quite as seamless as what my understanding what Revise is, but it's working right now. So that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah. And one of the big things about the game genre that you're talking about here is like, you didn't choose something that's like a turn-based, kind of, you chose something that has like soft real-time kind of constraints, right? So, so how have you worked through trying to make sure you can hit the soft real-time constraints, right? Have you been able to, are you using tools like Alec Check and stuff to make sure that you have, zero GC pauses in the core loop? Or, are you a bit more, is it a bit softer requirements on the real-timeness? I'm kind of curious about like the optimization of that core game engine, the core loop that you have within the engine there.
Mm-hmm. So I honestly haven't seen too many pauses like that. I have in certain projects that I've messed around with, I've seen pauses. It's honestly not bad enough for me to like get scared, like to worry about it. There have been, I think so this game that I'm prototyping now, it's actually like a derivative of like the last Game Jam game I made with Julia. So it's like I'm taking this game and then like kind of reworking it. And when I was creating it, I noticed some like pretty harsh pauses when like running some functions for the first time. So the way I worked around that was that when my scene initializes, I just run that function with like dummy parameters. And then it'll run while the scene loads. So it'll take that hit as soon as the scene loads, and then it'll just be smooth the rest of the time. So that's kind of the way I've worked around it. So when I'm working on this, I'm probably, if I run into anything like, if it's really harsh like that, I'm going to probably just do that for now, and just like run those functions with dummy parameters, get them to precompile, and then usually they just run smooth after that.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Because, with the game, like loading screens taking a little bit is kind of a known. So yeah, but I guess so. One of the other things, and if you're looking to ship to Steam, are you looking to ship to like a binary? Or so have you started trying to make use of Julia C and a lot of the binary compilation tools and looking at the deployment process of that as well?
Mm-hmm. So since I've started, I've been using Package Compiler. And that I would love to use Julia C because I've seen the build sizes, because Package Compiler, my builds end up being about 1.5 gigs, close to. I just switched a few months ago. I switched to Linux as like my main driver. I still have Windows like dual booted, and then I actually have a MacBook as a laptop, so I able to build all of those out myself. And I just tested yesterday the day before with both Linux and Mac. So I'm trying to ship to all of those, just like the PC computer platforms at first. And Package Compiler is kind of where I'm at with it. I don't think I'm going to be able to understand enough about Julia C to try to get all this working and import packages or like use packages and stuff like that. But I have had my finger on the pulse of that because I'm like super excited to one day like have, instead of like a gig and a half, it'd be like, megabytes. Like that's what I'm excited for. But right now I'm just like, I'm comfortable with package compiler. I've worked with it for a little over a year now with these projects and stuff like that. So I'm just going to stick with that. And then hopefully in the future I can kind of, shift over to, optimize build or binary builders.
I love how the energy in this episode, for me at least, shifted a bit notably in the sense that Chris typically being a more of a color commentator, but now he got his educational, if you will, or is really okay. Like he I almost feel like that Chris might just after our recording start looking at the engine and
I already opened it on the other screen. I don't know if people saw. Whenever you see like a difference in the color, that's because like I'm actually going through the source code right now.
By the time the conversation ends, by the time that the conversation ends, there will be a pull request that says, "Okay, this is the command line tool for Julia C. Working now."
Well, I mean, yeah. One of the things I was actually kind of curious. Sorry, you're bringing it up. They go through the code. In your core engine, have you looked into things like one of the things that people talk about with like trying to handle core hard real time or hard real time constraints and such is being able to cap the GC pauses and stuff. Have you done things to basically take complete control over the GC? For example, pausing GC during certain parts of the loop and then forcing it at certain times. And then have you looked into other kinds of techniques along those lines?
No, I actually haven't. I didn't even know that was possible. So the thing you're fine. The thing that that's been my guiding principle is like I'm like growing up, like I was never like I always, when I was in high school I got pretty good grades. When I was in college I struggled a lot because I just like the conventional way of learning, like reading a textbook, like I didn't gain much from that. Like just like when I'm coding, like straight up reading documentation has never been like a very fruitful thing for me unless I have like a ton of context. So a lot of times I learn about things is like I'm bashing my head against the wall and I'm like trying to like practically work through it. Like I have to get to it and then learn. Like if I'm reading about it right now and I'm not like at a place where like at a place where like I absolutely need it, like I'm going to like kind of like tunnel vision and kind of not worry about it. So a lot of the things like that are in the pipeline that I have planned on working on are like logical steps of like, okay, I know where like I'm limited. So like one of the next things I want to work on after I work on this game is like doing a proper ECS. Look, I'm looking at libraries and things like that. But that's something that's like, if I start thinking about that now, like that's going to just blow my scope up.
And
so like things like
ECS stands for
entity component system. So it's supposed to be like a much better way, like a much more efficient way of storing data. Like I don't know it. Like this is also one of those things I know generally about it. I don't know a ton about it, but like it's a much more efficient way of storing data for and generally used for game dev. Like so like Unity implemented like an ECS and like a lot of times they'll be like, okay, we can have like, in the old Unity, like I might have 10,000 entities in the scene and it's running at 50 FPS. But then when we go to this, ECS architecture, like it's like I can have 100,000 of the same entities running the same type of code, just like different structure. And it's like 100 FPS or something like that. It's like way more efficient. Like I don't know the ins and outs of it, but that's something I want to. It's just one of those things. It's something I'm going to cross when I get to it, and that's kind of the way I've tackled this. Like, if we're really looking at the game engine, it's pretty rudimentary. It's like it's not super advanced. Like it lacks a lot of features, but I can make games with it. But I'm not going to go try to make Call of Duty with it. I'm going to make little sprite, pixel art game and go from there. And I'm going to add tools when I build it. So when I make this game, I'm trying to keep the scope as small as possible. Really stay within the limits of the game engine as much as I can. If there's tools I can build without like sidetracking too much, I'm going to do that. But it's one of those things now that I've been working on it so long, I see is like, okay, like I'm not just gonna go straight to the moon. I got to take steps in between it. So right now, this game that's gonna come out, it's not gonna be a world beater. It's not gonna be anything crazy, but it's going to like, hopefully it's going to be something. Like it's going to be something engaging and actually fun. But it's gonna be simple. And that's kind of like the way I've kind of attacked things. So I try to keep a tunnel vision on things and just slowly incrementally built this thing
Yeah,
up.
so it won't be like Legend of Zelda with the Tears of Kingdoms physics engine. It'll be more like Breath of the Wild. Yeah, I guess.
Oh yeah. Yeah, pretty close to that.
But I have to say I really love this. Okay, let me see how hard it's really gonna get, and then I get my hands dirty, and then you figure it out along the way. I really appreciate this highly because, like to me at least, when I started off with Julia, my typical approach is more, okay, let me scout the theoretical landscape, and then I have a clear idea of what to expect. And for Julia, that approach that, okay, I knew what to expect, just didn't work out as much because the way to approach how to code efficiently or how to organize code efficiently felt very different to me. And so my initial start into Julia was, okay, I just don't know how to do things, and I felt overwhelmed. But you just said, okay, no matter the difficulty, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm just going to do it, and I'm just going to do it my way. And then if there's a more canonical way of doing it or a more efficient way of doing it, I will get to it later when I need to. But right now, I'm just like, this is the next step. This is the next step I want to take. And then you just, like you said, you bash your head against it, you try it out, and eventually, like, it's working. Cool.
Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of curious about the community that you, if you can comment on the community that you've been able to find that has been talking to you about the game engine and stuff, because I think that this might be a little bit unique. I mean, because you have someone like me kind of giving you these takes from a non-game kind of world, and you can see when going through some of these issues, right, that some of the people I've collaborated with, like one of the students I worked with before who did quantum ODE solvers, I see that he opened some of these issues about about suggesting the ECS and all this. So I'm kind of curious, like, coming from like Unity or something, you probably have a lot of game developers that kind of come talk to you. But it seems like in Julia, because there's a different community here, it seems like you're kind of getting interest from a whole bunch of different folks that are kind of giving you very different perspectives. I'm wondering if you can kind of chat about the folks that are kind of coming up and talking to you about this.
Mm-hmm. I was actually just gonna bring this up because talking about the way I've been doing things and kind of like just doing it my way, and then it's like once I have that like that grounding, then learning more. Specifically, one of those discussions was his name's Raphael, I think.
With Raphael. What's his name? Schouten. Yeah, he does a spatial ecology. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So one of my posts, I think I have this little handheld that's powered by like a Raspberry Pi 4, and I was running one of the games I made on it, and it was going like I think like 10 FPS or something like that. And that inspired him to make that discussion. And in the discussion, like I learned quite a lot about just simply typing things and kind of changing some ways I'm writing the code can like have big performance gains. And the way I started it, when and a lot of this is like it's very hard to remember exactly, since it was like 3 years ago when I initially started it and kind of abandoned it for a while. But when I first started, I was like, okay, how can I write this? Like I know how to write code. Like how can I write this? Like how can I make Julia object oriented? Like that's what I was doing, because I was like, okay, if I can do that now, then once I have that, I can go back and fix it, right? I was like, but if I don't even know anything about anything, like I'm just gonna be stuck and I'm not gonna want to do it. So I wrote the code very very object oriented, to the point of, and I think I found some random to do this. I found some random forum post, but essentially I was modifying like the base get property and then passing or like using the symbol and using those using the symbols that was passed through and calling it like a function. So like if I don't know, I could create like a struct and then modify its base get property function to like, if I say like, I don't know, like car.move or something like that, car.move, there's in that base property, it's like, if the symbol is move, then run this function, and there's like a function block in there, then run this function. And then so like all of my code like was like that, because like in C#, that's how it is, everything's in a class and classes have functions, and so you call them with the dot operator. And one of the things Raphael recommended was going away from that and really turning it into more of like we're passing our thing we're acting on through the parameters instead of like calling it as a dot operator. And I did that. Before I did that, and went through and basically rewrote. It wasn't a ton of work. It maybe took me like a couple of days, but rewrote all of these functions to not be like that object oriented style, to that like more of like I'm passing that parameter through that we're acting on. I did like a little test on like a scene that had like, I think I had like 5,000 or so entities on it, and then before and after, and it was like 30% faster or something like that, just by going through and doing that. I'm like, okay, like now I understand. I can understand that after I have that base. It's like I have like 60-70% of the idea there, and then it's like, okay, just make this little change, and it's it's a widespread change, but like make this little change, and then good things are gonna happen. And a lot of the work that I've done is that it's like, okay, I'm going to get this to work, and once I get it to work, then I have some grounding, and then once I have the grounding, then I can fix things. But I can't make it perfect when I start. And I think that's for a lot of people. But for me personally, like it's I have to do it my way first to build my understanding, and then fix it. So
and that's the right way to code, right? You make it right. Make it tested, make it fast, right? Those are the steps, and you can't skip a step there. So,
So
awesome.
If I'm now inspired to try and build my own little game with JulGame, like what would be your recommended steps of approaching the engine, of approaching the organization? Like if I would meet you at a game jam, and I would say to you, Kyle, can you just help me get started with JulGame? I want to, I don't know, build a Tetris or a Bomberman or whatever. Like, what will be your response?
Does this person know Julia already, or do?
So I know Julia. Yeah. Like in this hypothetical scenario, like I literally ask you, like,
okay.
I want to impress my kids, so if I'm able to build a Tetris for them that I've created on my own.
Your kid doesn't think that AI is cool or anything, right? So you gotta show them a game, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So what I would say is I started a tutorial series. I just recorded the last video for it. I just ran into too many issues that I want to fix, but I think I wrapped it up enough to like create something functional. So I would recommend following that. Or because I know some people, like, one of my buddies I work with, like he's really great at just like, he can read documentation, like, all right, I know how it works. Like I can't. Or he can just read code and say, I like, I understand this. So, I mostly can't. Or if I am doing it, I have to have something workable ready for me to be able to pick apart. So I have example projects. So I would recommend one of the example projects. I have to double check, but I think it's up to date, and I'm pretty sure it should be running. So I would take a look at one of the example projects if that's your thing. I would take a look at the tutorial. The tutorial, even the first episode, I give enough information about how to, like, set up the editor, where to, like, I have a build if you don't even want to do the source code, like use the source code, like a package compiler build, but that's only for Windows. I couldn't get to build for Mac or Linux. Or you could look at I don't know if I have an example on the README for the editor, but maybe I'll add something to the README for the editor for how to run the editor, just locally. And that's where I'll get started. I would either watch the video, or get one of the example projects and kind of pick it apart and go from there. Because the point of those, they're not full-fledged games, but a lot of them touch multiple parts of the engine and the functionality of it. It's hard, I guess, with the editor. The video is probably the only choice, because I don't have anything built into the editor yet of, like, this is, like little tutorial things. I have some informational icons that give some information, but not a ton. So it's not great right now. But that is something I've trying to chip away at.
But this gave a very nice segue to something else that I was very curious about, in that obviously I noticed you through your online presence. Like, having the GitHub repo is obviously cool, but also you're having a YouTube channel. You're sometimes streaming on Twitch your live coding sessions. And so why did you start it? What was your motivation? Like, what is your experience with doing this?
I think when I started Twitch, I think originally I started when I was in college, and I was just playing Rocket League. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that game, but it's just like car soccer. I used to play a lot of that. And so I started with that, did it on and off. And then in 2020, actually, I just got out of grad school, and it was like when a bunch of companies were laying off. And it was really, really hard to find a job then. And I didn't find a job for a few months. So I started streaming, like Unity game development. And I was making just random game jam projects, random projects and stuff like that. And I did that pretty consistently for probably like 3-4 months. But then I finally started a job, and then I kind of just, went nowhere. But I really like doing that, because when the first time I did the first stint of that, I actually gained a pretty decent following with it. Like, I think at one point I had over 10 Twitch subscribers, which is a good amount at one time. I had a bunch of recurring viewers. Some of them I actually have, I talk to, like they'll message me like every 6 months or something like that. Just like, hey, how you doing? Or something like that. And so I started doing that. I really, really enjoyed it, but just life gets in the way, work gets in the way. And then I've picked it up on and off since then. And with YouTube, it's kind of been the same thing. I think I started YouTube when I was a kid. I think I was making like Roblox videos, but I did that. I've always liked doing that. I think it's fun. And I also just I did devlogs and stuff. I deleted so many of them for projects that I just gave up. And I feel like I release like a video like every couple of months or something like that. I find it fun. I wish I could be more consistent with it. I tell myself every year I tell myself, all right, I'm going to, do like a, video or two a month and do this. And I never really keep up with it, but, at this point, I think I'm fine with that. I think I'm more invested in I think the YouTube thing, it's really fun, but I don't think I have the patience to really turn it into something like super successful. But building JulGame has just been something. It's even when I take breaks from it, it's on my mind. Like, it's on my mind. I think the longest break I truly took from it was like, I think work just got super busy earlier in the year. And I think I took like a month or two or something like that. But I'm always like thinking about it, always working on something with it or related to it, which is like, the games I'm working on. It doesn't, I guess this year it doesn't really show up in my Git history as much because I've really consolidated and I do pull requests and stuff like that. So like a lot of that stuff, like for days I work gets erased, but I'm usually like usually working on it at least like 2 or 3 times a week. So, but with that, I find that more interesting than like the YouTube stuff. And the YouTube stuff, I would love to like be consistent with that, but it's a lot of work for like very, very little payoff. And I know if I put more effort into it, there'd be a bigger payoff. But I think the bigger payoff mentally for me is just to continue building this project that I like.
So, but what I find remarkable about it, or what I really admire and appreciate about it, is that even though it's not your primary objective to try to be the fully open developer, if you will, but you're just putting it out there, and you're playing with it, and you're I would say you're giving glimpses as to what it is like to have this hobby, right? So for you right now, JulGame is the recreational part of coding. It's not your day job yet. And I think this is something that is that, like, my personal belief is, if Julia can cross this boundary from a very productive language and a highly appreciated language, particularly in academia, but has not yet gone into this, we can use it for anything, anywhere, just because it's fun. And this is something that you really transport with these efforts. It's like, okay, I'm trying, I'm playing around here, and I'm enjoying myself, so I keep doing it, even if it might not be as consistent and it's not completely professional at this point, but it's something that I enjoy enough, or you enjoy enough to keep going. And I think this is really inspiring.
Thank you.
So one question that I have with that, though, is, I mean, we kind of place these in 2 different worlds, right? We're like, we have these academic, like, we're making the real world physics, and we got your game physics going on and all that. And, but, do we have an opportunity here, right? Because the Julia community is right here making, I work on things like, realistic physics engines, if you want to call it an engine, right? Like, it's physics of an engine, right? And so that kind of stuff where I'm kind of curious, like how hackable is the physics engine of something like JulGame to be able to say, like, like let's put in here something that is actually like a fully like a rigid body simulation of a robot, and now you're controlling some actuator or something in there, something like, is there a way to be able to bridge these worlds of what we consider, this is robotics versus this is a game representation of a robot, right? I'm curious if you thought about that, especially with the community that we have here.
Yeah, so I haven't quite thought about it in the physics world, but I think I don't think there's like an easy way to like hack it. I think with the touch points of like the way the physics, if for the engine it's physics, the touch points for it, like if somebody really took the time to like understand it, like I guess I don't understand, like I don't know many like the ins and outs of other physics engines, but like there's not too many touch points of the engine where like it would be like impossible to do. I think it would be possible to like kind of like hack something in there, but you would have to do it in the main source code, I would think. Or I guess like maybe in the scripting, the scripting's pretty open. Like it's not like it's not very safeguarded. Like you just have a JL file and you can pretty much run any Julia code in there. I would have to look into it. But one thing I have thought of as like bridging the gaps is, and like mind you, like this is my high level. I don't really know much about it. I don't know if you guys ever seen Primer on YouTube. Primer's like a person who does like simulations. Has done like that. He's done like almost like with like agents. I don't know the really what he does on the back end of it, but like he's done like survival simulations of like, there's like this resource, and we have like these little blobs, and they're going out every day. They're going out, and there's like some, like they reproduce and stuff like that. There's some sort of thing, and then they like evolve. And I know Unity has done like things with machine learning agents, where that you can like simulate things like that, and then teach these agents how to play a game or something like that. That is something I have thought of. I know there is a Julia package with agents, like all these packages. I think I've started them, and I'm like, that'd be cool, cool to do. So next year, hopefully everything goes well with this game I'm thinking about. Hopefully after that, I really want to mess around with some things, explore some things. And that would be one thing I've actually been interested in, because I think I started doing like a tutorial for that in Unity like years ago or something like that. But I have thought about like that crossover. I would love that. And going back, I think the thing that I've noticed with like a lot of software engineers, especially like a lot of my buddies, gaming was the thing that got them into computer science and got them into programming. And it was for me. And I just like anecdotally, I know a lot of people that like that was like the reason, the driving force. And I think it would be pretty cool to be a part of like the reason why somebody maybe picked up Julia, or maybe even got into programming in general, because I view like, I think after, you learn some things, I think Julia is like really like, I love working with it. And I think a lot of other people would love working with it. And I think like having that domain available, is a key to get people into it, because, one day somebody might use JulGame, or they might use, or might create a game themselves, or a game engine with it themselves. And that might be the reason why they, they're working with Julia in academia or something like that. Or they have that experience. Like, oh, I already know this, or, I'm already familiar with this language. And that's something like I might actually use it for academia one day, because I've looked at, I might get I have a business master's. I don't have a computer science master's. So I might get a computer science master's one day, and I might, I might actually use it, for that. But it would be pretty cool to like bridge that gap. And I know a lot of people get in, especially online YouTube and all that stuff. Like a lot of people get into programming and they learn it. They might not continue with it, but they learn it through game development. And then that's where they build their base. That like with me, like I build my base with things I can grasp and understand. And then I branch out. So that's kind of my goal. And I think if we can do that, like with this or anything else, like that would be great.
I hear you. Yeah, the first thing that you could probably say that I did that was programming is using the custom map creations in Age of Empires 2 and StarCraft Brood War, right? So like those kinds of things are the things that bring people in programming. So they're definitely right there with you.
Awesome.
So, but the one thing that makes me now very curious is, I mean, JulGame is your approach of developing an engine, right? And what is your feeling towards, so if now all our listeners are motivated to set aside their academic goals and or their like professional goals, and now like, okay, I'm gonna spend so much time with JulGame, and then suddenly you have this influx of people that want to use your engine, but maybe also might push them into like different directions. Like, is that something that you would look forward to, that you would have like many co-developers on JulGame, or would it be something like, but I have my own way of starting to get nitty-gritty with it, and I'd rather like take it slow in this respect, or like,
I think a lot of that would be on me to like communicate like the intentions. I feel like generally, I mean, I have a roadmap in my mind, but I don't have anything like, public or anything like that. I think that would be on me to create like the general direction I foresee JulGame going. But like, like as a software engineer, I'm pretty young in my career. I know there's so many different ways of doing things. I feel like, at my job, I get to work with a lot of great engineers that have way more experience than me, and I learn a ton. Like, I feel like every week I'm learning something new. And even with the people who have contributed to JulGame, like, like they're creating a PR with these things, and I'm like, I wouldn't have done that, but that I didn't know I could do that. Like there's things I didn't know I could do. I didn't know this would be beneficial. Like, so I view it as a learning experience. Obviously, if something was just way off base, I would be like, hey, like let's think about this. Does this really fit the vision of the engine? Can this be like a package? Like, let's say it's, something just way off. It's like, can this extra feature be like a package that we can make usable, and maybe it's applicable to, other engines when people, if people are working on other engines in Julia, something like that. But like, I like, I'm not going to have like, try to have too much of an ego and say like, I know everything. Like, I don't, most of this has been firing from the hip anyway. So if somebody can tell me how to do something better, like I'm gonna listen. So
if someone comes and makes a PR that changes all your variable names to be emojis,
yeah, I mean that is something I actually legitimately do want to do, is like get some consistent naming standards in there. And stuff like that.
If you want to go change the full code base of JulGame to emojis for all names.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll review it. There was something I wanted to get to. I'll think of it. There's something I wanted to get to that slipped my mind. But
yeah, sorry. So one question that comes up to me, just with all the talk that we have about bringing communities together and all these things, I'm kind of curious because I'm not sure if there's really been an opportunity where a game engine is made in the same kind of environment that people do a lot of training of neural networks and such, right? I mean, yeah, you have like some ways to script onto Unity through Python, but like it's not like Python. It's not like PyTorch compatible, right? And so I'm kind of curious, have you looked into like compatibility of automatic differentiation and training loops, like with machine learning frameworks, with the differentiability of the game engine to be able to integrate machine learning at a very direct level? Maybe this is like a very low level kind of question, but I think that this is something that a lot of people might be curious about, just like because machine learning is not something that's completely disconnected from games. I mean, people do these reinforcement learning types of approach and such, but I mean, I think it seems like you could have an opportunity for having a deep connection. I wonder if you played with any of these ideas so far.
I have not yet, but that is definitely something I have thought of. That's something I really want to get to. I just don't like, before this next loop of me working on this game, I don't think that's going to happen, but that is something that is definitely on my radar. I personally don't know enough about machine learning to truly, like, I would have to learn about it, and it is something I'm interested in learning. But I have a million things I'm interested in learning. But stuff like that is definitely something that like has been on my radar to do, and like talking about the agents. Stuff like that. I think Unity's agents, they're like, they're machine learning and stuff like that. So that'd be something I'll be interested in if anyone is brave enough to navigate the code base and figure out where that could fit in. I'd be glad to integrate something like that into it. But I do, like, the intention, yes, is I want to have something that connects the community. Like, it's not just going to be like pure games only. Like, I want to also be able to take advantage of Julia and the packages and stuff like that. So hopefully one day. And the thing I forgot was that I did want to shout out to the people who have contributed to the engine, and that's also a reason why I'm so happy with the Julia community, is like I could put I could pretty much guarantee you, if I was creating an engine in C or C++ or C# or whatever, like I would have 0 contributors. Like, not, like, because there's probably thousands of those engines on GitHub, and like, what would make people want to contribute to like some random C or C++ engine? Like, but since I've worked in Julia and people are passionate about it, they want to see that grow. Like, I've been able to get help and like get, a little bit of mentorship on like how to improve my code. Because the community just like cares so deeply about like, growing the language. So wanted to shout that out.
Yeah, the big heart goes out to the community as always. So going forward, like you already mentioned, you have serious plans of putting something out on Steam. And I mean, I'm guessing that there will be some monetization associated with it, but I don't think you're or like I don't want to presume, but I'm guessing you don't banking on it on being like a smash hit and you're gonna make millions and you can quit your job. I think on your homepage I read somewhere that your goal would be to make a living out of game development, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering if a decent paying job at a big studio comes along, like how high is the risk that you will abandon JulGame and say, okay, I'm now developing the next Call of Duty 9 to 5, and so I'm not going to be interested in that anymore? Or did we hook you in enough such that like this temptation is not even gonna lure you in anymore?
Mm-hmm. I think that's for me. It's been pretty easy. Well, one, I work at a big tech company, and it's not, I work on work management software. Like, it's not like, it's not fun. Like, it's not like I'm like passionate about work management software. I do enjoy my job. I'm not saying that. But I don't think the risk of moving where I'm at, like, to like a AAA company or anything like that, I don't think the payoff is there. I think there's a lot of issues with the game industry right now. If your game fails, you're out of a job. Like, that's just not like, I have a family and everything like that, where like I work on work management software. Like, companies are, my product is not Jira, it's not Trello, but it's similar. But like, companies are always going to need to keep track of their work. Like, they're always going to need, like, developers are always going to need especially in a big company, they're always going to need, work management software to keep people in line. Whereas like, I don't, Call of Duty, like, people need it at this point. But, like if a studio goes out and makes a random game, it's like, we don't need that. Like, there's no market need for any video games. So like, any, video games are just inherently risky, and they don't pay quite as well as, like a regular big tech company. And like, they crunch, like there's the crunch factor of it and everything like that. If anything, I would probably go to like, I'd probably like to work at like a indie game studio or something like that. But like, all the conditions, like the stars would have to align for me to do that. Maybe 10 years, like, 10 years down the line, I'd be interested in something like that when I have, things in order. But I mean, my dream would be like, all right, somebody says, all right, you can quit your job, you'll make the same exact amount, you have the same benefits, everything like that, and you could just work on your project full time. Obviously, like, that would be it. But that's not reality. So, realistically, I'm probably just going to be where I'm at. And the great thing about not working in games is, like, when I work in JulGame or I work on a game, it's like, I don't get to do this all day. Like, I have to work on, work management software all day, and, be in meetings for hours and stuff like that. Like, this, I can just sit in front of the computer. I'm my boss. Like, I get to do it. I have short loops. I don't have to wait. I work on something, I make a code change at work, I have to wait 3 hours for this whole CI pipeline. I have to do all these processes and stuff. I can just quick. It's just quick. Like, and most part, nobody's reviewing my code, which is not the greatest thing. But I can work really fast. I can break things, and like I can just have a ton of fun. So I just don't foresee anything coming from like the games industry, like unless it was just like an unbeatable offer. I just don't foresee something like that happening at anytime soon. So
unless this first game that you released goes off so well that you end up making your own indie game studio.
that would be great. I think this first one is I mean, obviously I want to make a good game, but with the limitations of the game engine, and like not trying to be in like an just in scope creep hell. Like I need to make something very small, very niche, and hopefully with like I know an artist and he makes music and stuff like that with his work, like it can be presentable and be fun and be engaging and stuff like that. So trying to be very, very targeted, and with that the scope of the audience shrinks, but you never know. Like sometimes people don't expect things to succeed, and they do. But for me success. For me, success is just getting it done, getting it released, getting presentable. Obviously, I'm not just gonna, at this point, I could make a game or take one of my games that I've made already, come up with some cover art and stuff like that and throw it on Steam, but it wouldn't be my vision. So that's, I want something complete, something that other people actually want to play, and get it out there and have it all be in Julia.
But so let me also paint you another hypothetical, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the future, you completed your first game successfully according to your vision. It is making a decent money, such that it might be, it might not be getting riches, but it might be sufficient. I don't know. But then also at the second time, there's so many people want to build on JulGame and putting their own games on Steam that suddenly it might make sense to say, okay, I'm going to support JulGame full time and offer this as a software product. Like, which one of those two would then be your future, right? Because I heard of people that start building random Julia packages and suddenly they are in the corporate Julia world.
Suddenly it makes a pharmacometrics company, yeah.
So I would ideally, I've thought about that, and ideally the way I would love to fund something like that is like through like voluntary means, like a Patreon or like sponsorships or something like that. So then like people who really want to access it without like, I never want to like close it off. Like I never want to close it off. I never want to, limit it from other people, because like, I just think, I'm not against people charging for software. Like, you work on software, whatever, you have the right to charge for it. But like me personally, I would love to keep it open, and then just like on a voluntary basis, like make enough to be able to support myself, and to the means I would like, and do that. That would be great. I would love to do that and support it. I think that would be really fun. I mean, obviously, when you start getting money into it, and people are depending on you, then I have to start looking at my current job and be like, all right, what are we doing over here to make sure we're not messing with other people's money? What processes do we have in place? Because we have a lot of processes in place to try to limit that. And I think there's a lot of things to think about. But if that was the case, like I would love that opportunity. But I'm in a place with my current job right now where it's like, that is a really hard, it would take a lot for me to want to switch.
Yeah. I feel pretty happy about this conversation. How do you guys feel?
I think that was a list of questions that I got. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was great. That was fun.
Is there anything else that you want to bring up? Shout outs? I don't know. Any wishes for the community? Any calls to action? Any
demands?
Yeah.
Demands. No demands. I guess one thing I've been putting off, and trying to put together is a game jam for Julia. I would love to like get people to participate because I host. So I actually have a Discord server and I host game jams. And I've been trying to host it. I've just been putting it off.
Will you be going to JulGame this year?
I wasn't planning on it. I don't know. I've heard of it, but I don't know.
We could do a game jam at JulGame. Just throwing it out there. If there's interest, like, subscribe, and comment below.
Yeah, I'll consider that. I don't. Where is it being hosted this?
It's going to be in Pittsburgh this year.
Oh. Okay, I mean, I live probably 2 hours from Pittsburgh, so maybe I'll think about it. That'd be pretty cool.
If there's appropriate interest, we could kind of consider doing something where we talk with the JulGame committee about trying to get a room the day before or something, and put it into the schedule that we could do a live game jam there if you would be in. I mean, I'm really throwing you on the spot here.
So I'm also before you finish this announcement, like I officially have an announcement to make in that sense that the one mini symposium that got accepted to JuliaCon this year is Recreational Julia, where I hope to just have a lot of people showcase what they do in their spare time. And obviously, like, JulGame would be like one of the cool projects that we would like to see there. So yeah, no pressure, but it would be really nice to see you in JulGame this year.
People here. I mean, people watching this. If you would actually just show up to the game jam, just comment below. I mean, if there's enough comments, then we could throw one together as one of the workshops before JulGame, after JulGame or something. It's really not so hard to get a facility together and get a room and go for it. So if there's the interest, we could just do this.
Yeah, if there's interest, I think I'd be compelled to show up. But I mean, that sounds super exciting. Yeah, I mean that's not a far drive for me. So I'll definitely think about it. I'm not going to commit to it right now, but I'll definitely think about it.
Meet you. A lot of people love to meet you. They've been watching your materials and stuff. So I'd say come give it a try. At least to show up and say hi to a few people. Walk around. Maybe you not pay the registration if you don't want to. Just go to the restaurants to everyone.
When is it?
July, I believe.
Okay, so it's a decent time. Decent time. Give me some time to really fix some bugs.
Just slam it into your mind right there. I mean, really on the spot.
No, that would be cool. I've honestly never. I'm not going to go on a huge tangent about this, but I know we talked about the community of Unity versus JulGame. Julia was really the first time I've actually reached out for help in a community, reached out and actually showed my stuff. I've pretty much kept things to myself, even when I was working on Unity stuff, and it's especially when I would go on Stack Overflow and see somebody ask a question, it's why would you ever ask that or something like that, and then I go to Julia forums and it's people are always happy to help. But I've never been super involved in a community like that. So I mean that'd be pretty cool. Pretty cool to finally get involved, and I've never done an in-person event or anything like that either. So be sweet.
All right. Yeah, we'll see. So, with all that out of the way, huge thanks again to Kyle for being on the show, for sharing all this story of JulGame, really, your passion. It has been a great pleasure getting to know you, learning more about JulGame, and also, as always, thanks to our listeners. out there.
Check out JulGame, but also check out his YouTube and check out the Twitch channel as well. So he's got lots of things to see. So if you haven't seen it before, I mean, I've looked at some of the tutorials and stuff. They're really cool. So definitely check out all this stuff. And if you want to start hacking away on JulGame and change all of the variables in his code to emojis. As you heard here, he's looking for people who'd be interested to help and such. So it's get in touch. I mean, this is the topic where anyone who's watching, I think can kind of start to get involved. And so definitely look at all these materials. I know that a lot of our other topics are going deep into like math and machine learning here, and this one's a bit different. But this is one which could be pretty fun to just say, hey, look. Let's just start to do it. So, and if you have a bit of Kyle's attitude there, just come on in and just start playing with it.
Awesome. Thank you both for having me. I love this. I really enjoyed doing this. So thank you so much.
Yeah, the pleasure is all on our side. Thank you. And with that, see you in the next episode.